Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, where we bring you stories that inspire, challenge, and remind us of the power within each of us. Today's story is one of perseverance, justice, and the hidden complexities behind authority. It begins as a police captain and his wife take a well-earned break from their hectic lives. But what starts as a peaceful drive quickly spirals into a chilling encounter with racial profiling and unchecked abuse of power. What happens next will keep you on the edge of your seat as we unravel a story of courage, integrity, and accountability. Stay with us as we explore how one man's calm resolve in the face of injustice reveals the cracks within the system and the powerful message it sends. If you love stories with unexpected twists and life-changing moments, be sure to comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss an inspiring story from Hopeful Horizon. And let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you. Damon Brooks leaned back into the leather seat of his new car, a black Tesla, as it glided effortlessly along the scenic country road. The windows were down, letting in the cool breeze that smelled faintly of pine and fresh rain. Damon wore a crisp white polo shirt and khakis, with designer sunglasses perched on his nose. His wife, Trina, was seated next to him, her curls bouncing softly in the breeze, radiating elegance in a lavender sundress that perfectly complemented her smooth brown skin. She scrolled lazily through her phone, the occasional hum escaping her lips as she enjoyed the rare break from their hectic lives. "Feels good to get away, doesn't it?" Damon said, his voice warm and low. Trina replied, looking out the window. "No work calls, no schedules, just you and me." For once, life felt light. As a police captain, Damon rarely had the luxury of taking a day off. The city demanded so much from him, and any free moment was usually spent tackling late-night meetings or being called in for emergencies. But today was different. They decided to treat themselves to a drive through the countryside, away from the noise of the city. No uniforms, no crime scenes, just peace. "I'm glad we did this," Trina said, resting her hand on his arm. "Me too," Damon smiled. No interruptions. Or so he thought. A flashing of red and blue lights filled the rearview mirror. Damon furrowed his brow, slowing the car down. "You've got to be kidding me." Trina sat upright. "What did we do? You weren't speeding." "Nope." Damon pulled over to the shoulder, his calm demeanor intact. But a flicker of annoyance crossed his features. A routine stop wasn't unusual, but in his years of law enforcement, Damon knew the signs. Something didn't feel right. The cruiser parked behind them, and Damon watched as the officer emerged, Officer Rick Daniels. Stocky, broad-shouldered, and with an air of arrogance that could be sensed from the way he slammed the door. Daniels adjusted his belt, his hand resting on the handle of his holstered gun, his walk heavy with intent. Damon glanced at Trina, who gave him a look that said, "Be careful." Daniels approached the driver's window with slow, deliberate steps. "License and registration," he barked, not bothering with a greeting. Damon gave a polite nod and reached for his wallet. "Of course, officer. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" Daniels gave a slow, disdainful smirk. "Routine traffic stop." Trina shifted in her seat. "Is there a problem?" Daniels shot her a glance, his eyes sharp and unkind. "I wasn't talking to you, was I?" Damon held up a calming hand to his wife, keeping his voice measured. "There's no need for that tone." Daniels' eyes narrowed. "You got something to say, buddy?" There was a sneer on his lips, the kind that hinted at something ugly beneath the surface. "No, officer," Damon said calmly. "Just cooperating with your request." Daniels stared hard at Damon, as if trying to place where the man's quiet confidence came from. There was something in the way Damon held himself, relaxed but aware, like someone who knew far too much. It was unnerving. "Step out of the vehicle," Daniels said abruptly. Damon's eyebrows lifted. "Is there a reason?" "I said step out," Daniels snapped. His voice carried an edge, daring Damon to resist. Reluctantly, Damon unbuckled his seatbelt and opened the door, his tall frame unfolding as he stood. "Hands where I can see them," Daniels demanded. Damon obliged, maintaining a composed stance. Daniels moved closer, looking Damon up and down, then glanced at Trina through the open window. A smirk crept onto his face, a smirk that made Damon's stomach twist. "Mind if I search the car?" Daniels asked, though his tone made it clear it wasn't a request. "You don't have probable cause," Damon responded, keeping his voice steady but firm. Daniels bristled at the subtle pushback. "Oh, we got a lawyer here, huh? Or maybe you think you're too good to follow orders." "I know my rights, officer," Damon replied evenly. Daniels stepped forward, his face inches from Damon's. "You better watch yourself, boy." The word hit the air like a slap. The tension escalated. Trina watched nervously from inside the car, her hands tightening on the edge of her seat. She knew that look on Damon's face, the one he got when he was trying to stay calm, while fury simmered beneath the surface. Daniels turned to Trina. "Step out of the car, ma'am." She hesitated, glancing at Damon, who gave her a small nod. Trina opened the door slowly and stepped out, her heart racing. "Hands on the car," Daniels ordered. Trina complied, resting her palms on the cool metal of the Tesla. Daniels walked behind her, his presence looming, and then, without warning, he yanked her hands behind her back and slapped handcuffs on her wrists. "What the hell are you doing?" Damon barked, stepping toward them. "Back off," Daniels warned, his hand hovering over his gun. "Or you're going in cuffs too." Trina's breath hitched as Daniels shoved her toward the back of the police cruiser. She stumbled, her arms awkwardly restrained behind her. "Stop, you don't need to—" Damon started, but Daniels cut him off. "Shut your mouth." Damon clenched his fists, watching helplessly as the officer manhandled his wife. The door to the cruiser swung open, and Daniels shoved Trina inside. Then came the sound Damon would never forget, Trina's scream, sharp and terrified. The scream pierced Damon's heart like a knife. His wife, his partner, the love of his life, was in that car, scared, vulnerable, and at the mercy of a man who had already crossed too many lines. Daniels sneered, slamming the door shut. "What's the matter? Can't do anything, can you?" Damon's jaw tightened. He stepped back slowly, his hand slipping into his pocket. Daniels didn't notice as Damon discreetly pressed a number on his phone. "Help is on the way," Damon whispered to himself. He knew exactly who to call. 5 minutes later, the distant wail of sirens filled the night air. Daniels stiffened, glancing around in confusion. Several squad cars pulled up, lights flashing, and officers poured out, their faces a mix of confusion and shock. "Damon?" One of the officers, Sergeant Jenkins, approached, his eyes wide with disbelief. Daniels stared in bewilderment as more officers arrived, surrounding him. Then came the moment he dreaded. "Officer Daniels, put your weapon down," Jenkins said, his voice calm but firm. "What the—" Daniels stammered, still not grasping the gravity of the situation. "That's Captain Brooks," Jenkins said pointedly. "Our captain." The realization hit Daniels like a punch to the gut. His face went pale. "Captain," he whispered, horrified. The officers moved in swiftly, pulling Daniels away from the cruiser and slapping cuffs on his wrists. Damon walked to the cruiser and opened the door, helping Trina out gently. "It's over," Damon whispered, holding her close. In the months that followed, Daniels faced trial. The body cam footage revealed everything: the groping, the racist insults, the threats. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Damon and Trina's lawsuit against the department made headlines, and they were awarded a $1 million settlement. But the real victory was in knowing that justice had been served, not just for them, but for everyone who had ever been victimized by someone like Daniels. Because no matter what uniform you wear, accountability knows no rank. Months have passed since the harrowing encounter on that quiet stretch of road, but the ripple effects from that day are still being felt. Damon Brooks and his wife, Trina, emerged from the ordeal stronger, but not without scars. For Damon, a veteran officer who had dedicated his life to justice, the incident was a stark reminder of the very prejudice he fought against from within the system. Trina still carries the emotional weight of that night, her trust in law enforcement fractured. Therapy sessions and quiet moments spent together have helped, but healing is a process, not an endpoint. The media firestorm that followed the release of Officer Rick Daniels' body cam footage rocked the police department to its core. Public outrage spread like wildfire as news channels and social media lit up with clips of Daniel's assault, harassment, and the drawn gun aimed at Damon. The footage exposed not only the individual misconduct of one officer, but also systemic failures that had allowed someone like Daniels to remain on the force for so long. His arrest and subsequent conviction sent a message, but it was clear to the community that much more needed to change. The trial was brutal. Daniels sat stone-faced in the courtroom, his arrogance melting away only when the jury handed down the guilty verdict. Sentenced to 10 years in prison, with no chance of parole, Daniel's career and reputation were in ruins. His fall from grace was swift, and his former colleagues distanced themselves from him, leaving him to face the consequences alone. But the story didn't end there. Damon and Trina sued the department, seeking justice not just for themselves, but to shine a light on how unchecked power can lead to abuse. The courtroom was packed on the day the verdict was read. Reporters, activists, and citizens all watched as the jury awarded the couple a $1 million settlement. The department, with its stained reputation, was forced to publicly acknowledge its failures and initiate reforms to rebuild trust with the community. The payout was bittersweet. No amount of money could undo the trauma of that night, but it gave Damon and Trina the means to take a long overdue break from the stress of police work and life in the public eye. They spent weeks traveling, reconnecting, and finding peace in places far from the noise of the city. When they returned home, Damon made a decision that shocked many. He resigned from the force. It wasn't out of bitterness, but out of purpose. He knew that change within the system would take time, and though he had fought the good fight, he was ready to make an impact in a different way. With Trina by his side, Damon began working as a consultant for police reform initiatives, using his experience to help reshape departments across the country. The couple also started a foundation focused on supporting victims of police misconduct and promoting community-based policing programs. Their story became a symbol of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, even when the odds are against you. Daniel's name became a cautionary tale within law enforcement circles, an example of what happens when ego, hate, and unchecked power collide. Meanwhile, Damon and Trina continued their journey, not as victims, but as advocates for a better future. As they sat together one quiet evening, watching the sunset from their porch, Damon reached for Trina's hand. "We made it," he whispered, a soft smile on his face. Trina squeezed his hand and rested her head on his shoulder. "Yeah," she whispered back. "We did." And in that moment, they knew that while the battle against injustice was far from over, they had won the fight that mattered most, the fight for their dignity, their love, and their peace. Thank you for being part of this powerful journey of courage, justice, and accountability. Damon and Trina's story reminds us that even in moments of vulnerability, standing tall can lead to profound change. It's about knowing your rights, using your voice, and demanding fairness, even when the odds seem overwhelming. Their experience sheds light on the importance of holding those in power accountable and the strength it takes to challenge systemic injustices. If this story resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share what stood out the most. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss another thought-provoking and heartwarming story from Hopeful Horizon. We'll be back with more tales that challenge perceptions, uplift spirits, and leave a lasting impact. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and never stop fighting for what's right.